So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to gain a competitive advantage in business, how to beat your competitors. And this is something that I have done myself. I have gained a competitive advantage at a very young age of 29. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Prithvi. I'm the founder of a healthcare investment company based in UAE. And in the last couple of years, I've managed to bring together some of the most high profile executives in the country. I'm talking about billion-dollar CEOs, lawyers that have worked on $13 billion deals, and I've met some high profile bankers. I've secured term sheets from banks to finance up to $10 million. And I haven't had a background in finance. I don't come from a rich family. I was raised by a single mother and I had no contacts in the UAE. I was born and raised in India and I moved to UAE with no contacts, and I built everything from scratch. And while I was building this company, the whole idea of Dubai being such a competitive environment and all these skyscrapers, all these supercars kind of came on to me, and I started to feel insecure about how I'm going to compete in this environment. And that has been my feeling even since school days. When I saw some kid performing really well, I would get really scared, because I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I was up to the mark. But I have proved myself what's possible, because you don't have to be good in school to be good in business. So let's talk about the strategy here about having a competitive advantage. It's extremely powerful. It's something that I learned from Dan Pena, partly from Dan Pena, who is my mentor. And if you don't know, I have done the Quantum Leap Advantage seminar and Quantum Leap Advantage seminar also, which both cost 20,000 pounds each. And right now they cost around $40,000. So let's talk about the strategy. And the strategy is as follows. Most people in life, they don't have the fucking balls. They will have work ethic. They can do hard work. They can be intelligent. They can be smart, but they don't have the balls. And I remember Dan Pena mentioning it to me that success is 90% balls and 10% brains. And he used to think it's 50-50. So really what's important in business is not the general knowledge, not, some kind of knowledge or, talent or whatever. The most important thing in business is balls. Can you put yourself in a position of high risk, high fear activities? So what you will notice is that in a business, even in not just in business, but even in life, in a room, any room you walk into, the most powerful position in that room will have a high risk and high fear index. What do I mean by that? Let's say you walk into a talk, all right? You have a room full of people and one of them will be giving a talk to everybody else. Well, the speaker in that room is the most powerful person in the room. And that speaker is also in the most riskiest and most fear-driven position, because public speaking is one of the biggest fear people have. So if you look at the whole crowd is actually in their comfort zone. They are sitting on the seat listening to the speaker. They are not exposed. Their face is not exposed. The content that is being spoken, that's not theirs. I mean, nothing, they cannot get in trouble. They cannot say something wrong. I mean, they're in a pretty much a very safe bubble. And this bubble is very addictive for a lot of people. And people want to stay in this bubble and don't want to break their comfort zone. But the speaker who has the authority and who has the power, who is speaking in the microphone, that speaker is exposed. And that one position in the whole room has the highest risk and fear index, and also it has the highest reward associated with it, because probably that speaker is communicating 1 to 1,000 and he has the opportunity to do business with all these 1,000 people. And these people, maybe they came there for a networking event and they are talking one-on-one, and they may network a little bit, but really the biggest opportunity lies when you're the speaker or when you're in the high risk position. Let's take another example of a company. Who is the person who gets paid the most in the company? It's the owner of the company that gets paid the most. It's not the CEO, it's not the general manager, it's not some employee, it's the owner of the company. And the reason is because that person has taken most amount of risk in the company, and the whole company, the other individuals, do not take the risk. They work hard, they may have the talent, they may have the brains, they may come on time, they may, kiss ass, or they may be good at politics, they may be good at whatever, but they haven't taken the risk. And if you look at the compensation between an employee and an entrepreneur or the shareholder, it's exponentially high for someone who is a shareholder. And you get to be a shareholder in a company when you take the risk. So whoever takes the risk wins the game. Whoever can perform under highly fearful situations, highly scary situations, that's the guy who wins. It's not the smartest, it's not the most hardworking, it's not the most talented, it's not the most intelligent, it's not the most smartest, it's not the most qualified. It's the person who has the biggest pair of balls. Let me give you another example of my personal story. While I was building my company, I have put myself in a very risky position. I'm not being paid when I'm building this company, and I'm putting all my time that can be used to build another business that can pay me or work in a company. So I'm putting myself in an extremely risky position where I'm living in Dubai and I'm building this company and I'm exposing myself. And I met a lot of people. I met CEOs of very big healthcare companies. There is a CEO, I'm not in business partnership with him, but he was a CEO of a very, very big healthcare company. And he has all his life, he has been an executive, an employee. And when I presented the idea to him, he was interested, but he wanted me to execute it. And he wanted to be kind of in the shadows, and he didn't want to associate his name with it. And he was very risk averse. And he was successful, he had money, but it wasn't anywhere near what an entrepreneur makes. And when I gave him the proposal and he said, Prithvi, that's never going to work. It's not going to work. It's not possible. It can't be done. And what he was really saying is not it cannot be done, is that it cannot be done without taking a risk. And I'm not the one who's going to take the risk. So he had a very low risk appetite, and even if he was very talented and he was from a very prestigious college and he had 30 years of experience in healthcare, he was all over the news, his compensation wasn't as high as someone who takes the big risk. And the ability for people, the inability of people to deal with their fear and risk and take action, you will find such few people are capable of that. So if you are willing to take the risk, and if you're willing to enter those fear zones in any room, high risk, high reward zones, positions, you would be the guy who gets paid almost every single time. And people will be really jealous of you because they will see that you haven't done a lot of work, but still you get paid a lot. And I noticed this when I entered the room in Burj Khalifa, when I met the CEO of a $3.5 billion company who's my business partner. I saw that he was the speaker in the room. He was the guy who was most exposed, and you could see just the way he stands that he takes these powerful positions. And he probably was not doing it, but then he started to do it and he became wildly successful. I mean, he was running a public company, $3.5 billion public company. And he did not go to any of the Ivy League schools. He did go to college, but he didn't go to an Ivy League school. And he still got to be in that position because he was willing to expose himself. And every room he goes, he's the speaker. So here is what happened. I entered into the room. It was Burj Al Arab. It's a 7-star hotel. And at the top of the floor, there was a whole conference table and he was sitting at the head of the meeting. And he was the speaker there. And just to enter that room, you had to pay $200 for probably an hour or so, hour or 2 hours, just the entry fee. So just that little entry fee, there is a risk involved. So most of the people will run away right there. So I paid the entry fee, I entered, and I saw the first thing, and I wasn't surprised, is that he was sitting at the head of the table and the chair next to him was empty and the rest of the conference table was full. Now you might think that a person like this, people will be all over him, but not at all. He looks like an emperor. In fact, he looked very scary, and he's a powerful figure. You know, people don't want to fuck up in front of him because they might lose their reputation, right? So people kind of want to stay away from him. And he has a presence that puts everybody to shame. You know, he has such a big track record that people feel insecure and ashamed. So he has a very intimidating presence. So nobody was there around him, next to him. And I decided that moment that I will just stand up and I will sit right next to him, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I feel scared. And remember, I have no track record. I've never worked in a company. I had a couple of failed businesses, and there I exposed myself. And in that room, there were multi-millionaires, there were top bankers, there were guys who owned healthcare companies, you know, proper entrepreneurs were also there, but they did not, and a lot of other successful executives, but they did not have the balls to sit next to him, not only to sit next to him, but strike a conversation with him. And these are the moments where you get to express your boldness in the face of fear, in the face of risk. And I was willing to risk it, no problem, because I'm willing to risk it many times. So even if I lose this opportunity, I can do it again and again and again and again and again. And this is the competitive advantage, because there could be very smart people in the room. There could be more qualified people than me in the room. There could be people with better ideas. I don't think people with better ideas, because I was trained by Dan Pena, but I'm saying there could be people with talent, intelligence, whatever, but just because I was willing to sit in a very high pressure situation, that those positions are the ones that get rewarded the most. And you can perform this analysis. Any room that you enter, just ask yourself, what's the riskiest position to be in, and which position has the highest fear index? You know, a beautiful girl, you know which girl is the least approached in a club? The girl with guys around her, you know, boyfriend, whatever, you know, and the girl that looks the scariest, and the girl that's probably in the most scariest spot or in the limelight. That is the girl, and she looks like, you know, scary, like the devil, you know. She's the type of girl that is going to get approached the least, because everybody is scared of her. Everybody is afraid of the consequence. But if you just walk up, you may discover that that guy wasn't even her boyfriend, you know, whatever. And she's going to give you the props for it. That, whoa, you just walked up and you started a conversation, and I know I look scary. They know, people who look scary, they know that they look scary. So they always appreciate that you walked up. Even if it's a boyfriend, you address him, you know, and you take care of the situation. But I mean, the point is that you want to be in positions of high risk and high fear index. And of course, you got to manage the risk, but I'm just saying that you got to expose yourself. And you will see, when it comes to taking leadership roles, people will back out. When it comes to starting a company, people will back out. When it comes to doing a public speaking, people will back out. When it comes to talking to a supermodel type girl, people will back out. And those are your opportunities if you are willing to take the risk and expose yourself fear-wise. And one of the protocols in QLA and Dan Pena was that every single day, we had to expose ourselves to something we were scared of, just to condition our minds. And what happens is that you start getting used to it, because fear is just fear, fear of something versus the other doesn't matter. It's fundamentally fear. So what starts to happen is this. You talk to a girl that's super attractive. And I've done this when I was in Moscow. I was talking to a lot of beautiful women, and it's very funny that first woman you talk to, your lips are shaking, your hands are shaking, your knees are shaking, you can't even stand straight. And then you talk to another person. By the time you get to a couple of people in a club or a bar, your 15th person that you talk to, you're completely normal. You've lost your adrenaline and it's no longer scary. Same thing happens in business. The first time I negotiated a $10 million deal and the first time I entered a clinic, I was shaking like anything. And my first clinic that I entered was actually a $3.5 million deal. And I saw the guy and I was choking up. I had, spasms in my stomach. I had, my hands were shaking. I felt vomiting. And after that, I met the $25 million business in a conference room. I was completely normal. No problem. It's funny how $3.5 million deal, because I was starting out, I was shaking, but a $25 million deal later on, I had lost my adrenaline. Because by that time, I had met already a $120 million company and negotiated with them. So $25 million doesn't seem like a big deal now. But when you're at zero, $3.5 million negotiation seems like something. But once you've done a couple of negotiations and we've been exposed, it's normal. But I would not have gotten comfortable if I didn't expose myself at the beginning, if I didn't get over that hurdle. And same thing happened with the bank term sheet, the bank that gave, gave me the term sheet to finance up to 50 to 70% of the transaction. They invited me for a nice lunch. And I swear you, I was sitting down and the whole room was shaking. I felt so much pressure. I felt, oh fuck, how am I going to pay this back, And I haven't run a company, I haven't run operations. I do have a lot of people to advise me, but and I couldn't even talk properly. But you keep doing those presentations and it's just become second nature. So exposure is extremely critical. Identify the positions with high fear index. Opportunities are going to be there. The reward is going to be the highest. Always look and analyze the room. Who's the scariest person? And that person, strangely, is the easiest to deal with because they're not getting approached a lot. With that, I'll talk to you soon.